Hey, this is Bigmoran, and this is actually not going to be a gameplay guide, but instead it's going to be a guide on how to have a courtesy in Arena. And I think a lot of this centers around Arena being a team sport. And what I mean by this is, obviously, when you go into any sort of Arena game, you're not alone. You either have 1, 2, or 4 other people with you. So, in that sense, I think it's best to be a team player when you go into Arena, because there's nothing worse than playing with someone who doesn't want to play for the team. And basically going into that, so I've played with a lot of players who are really great, really energetic, enthusiastic, and helpful. And I've also played with a lot of players who are very rude, crass, and just overall just douchey. And from experience, I can definitely say that it's much better playing with someone who is constructive and enthusiastic rather than someone who's just going to bicker the entire time. And so what sort of courtesy should you show in Arena? And basically, I've highlighted the top 5 things I think you should do in Arena to be a team player. And number 1, you should never place blame on anyone else. And I think whenever you start placing blame on another person, or when someone places blame on you, it really creates a stressful environment. And the person who's being blamed will kind of be more self-conscious about their decisions in Arena, and it might affect their play. And it's better just to play naturally than try to play by like other people's rules. It sounds kind of counterproductive, but you should really just be as comfortable as possible when you play Arena. And it doesn't help when someone's yelling at you the entire time and telling you that it's all your fault that you lost. Number 2 is you should constructively offer advice and criticism. And by this I mean, whenever your partner makes a mistake that's pretty crucial or pretty bad, you shouldn't just say, you know what, you completely fucked up. You should say, oh, well, you were healing great that entire time, you're doing a great job of keeping up with damage, but next time you should try to go for more hexes, or you should go for my cyclones, or something like that. Like, you shouldn't outright criticize them. You should instead give them compliments of what they did well, and then offer advice for the future and the future games. Number 3, you should never rage at your partners, and you should never rage in general, because it just makes you look, childish, and really makes you look immature in front of your partners, and they'll be uncomfortable with you just being extremely mad, and you'll eventually regret your rage. I don't know if anyone's ever proud of raging, but it just creates an environment, as I mentioned before, that is uncomfortable, and your play of your partners might be affected if you're raging. And if you're playing with a partner who constantly rages, just tell them to chill out, or even take one step further and just stop playing with them altogether, because it's just really bad for everyone involved. Number 4, make sure you know your role, and I'll explain this in greater detail. And what I mean by this is, there's nothing worse to me than when I'm playing with some DPS who are yelling at me to heal them. Like, I play a healing class, I know my role is to heal people, and I don't need to be reminded of it. Similarly, I can say it from the opposite perspective. If I'm playing a healing class, I should never tell people, the DPS that I'm playing with, that they need to do damage or something like that. Obviously they're trying, and if you're yelling at your healer to heal you, that's kind of just overstepping your boundaries, is what your role is in the Arena setting. My 5th and final advice is to brainstorm strategy after losses. When you lose a game, you should never be too upset about it. You should always try to look for the ways you can improve your play and your team play in order to beat that same team, and to not make mistakes in the future. So what I like to do with all my teammates is, after a loss, instead of just bickering and yelling at each other, is to brainstorm new strategies, or talk about what you can improve to make your time against the same team easier next time you go play them. And this is really helpful because it does 2 things. It reinforces the idea of a team, and the idea that there's a connectiveness in between each player, and also it makes each player a bit smarter and more Arena aware, because you are talking about strategy. It's like the same thing as studying, I guess, for school. You're becoming more savvy with your Arena knowledge if you try to be inventive with your strategy.